The African diaspora is global. People of African origin are all over the world, sometimes in unexpected places. Between 1500 and 1800, 6.5 million people came to the Americas. 5.5 million came from Africa as victims of the commerce in African lives called the transatlantic slave trade. So for the first 3 centuries of the modern Americas, most of the people who laid the foundations of the new societies were of African origin. Some were enslaved for their knowledge and skills, providing a transfer of technology from Africa to the Americas. In Ecuador, African descendants pan gold, from which they make beautiful creations, using technologies inherited from ancestors from the Gold Coast, now Ghana, enslaved for their expertise in gold mining. Africans brought with them the seeds and skills to grow rice that had been domesticated more than 3,000 years earlier in Mali. U.S. plantation owners asked slave ship captains to bring them rice Negroes. Many enslaved Africans sought to regain their freedom, some by escaping to inaccessible places. In Suriname, they fled up rivers into the dense rainforest and established free Maroon communities. Maroon descendants in Colombia affirm their heroic past and continue an African lifestyle.
Africa, Africa, Africa.
Jamaica's national heroine, freedom-seeking Maroon leader Queen Nanny, is featured on a bill that people call a nanny. And in the United States, Harriet Tubman, who led African Americans from Southern slavery to Northern freedom, will be the first woman featured on U.S. currency. Some are already calling the bill a Tubman. Africans recreated their cultures in the Americas. Royal traditions from the Central African Congo Kingdom are still celebrated in Brazil and Panama. Also in Brazil, descendants of Yoruba people from Nigeria and Benin in West Africa celebrate their orishas, spiritual beings whose choreographies represent forces of nature. More than 200 million people of African descent now live throughout the Americas, continuing traditions that reflect their African origins. But the African diaspora is not just in the Atlantic world. In Turkey, descendants of Africans enslaved across the Mediterranean Sea during the Ottoman Empire affirmed their identity as Afro-Turks. And across the globe, from the Atlantic world, it is in India that the African diaspora is most significant. Tens of thousands of Afro-Indians known as Siddhis, whose ancestors came from East Africa, have created rich cultural forms in several parts of the country. Siddhis built monumental constructions, such as the nationally landmarked fort on Janjira Island, from which they controlled maritime traffic on the Konkani coast for centuries. In Gujarat, Siddhis built a shrine for their African saint, the Abyssinian Baba Gaur, who was also worshipped by other Indians. Siddhis celebrated when Barack Obama became president of the United States, some proudly characterizing him as an American Siddhi. The African musical bow that Siddhis play for Baba Gaur and call by the Bantu name Malunga is the faraway twin of the Afro-Brazilian berimbau. Linked by common origins and cultural continuities, people of African descent scattered around the world now form a global community.